So we know that when we look at utilitarianism from the perspective of individual acts, it looks like it justifies the majority in doing almost anything they want to individuals or small minorities. Why do the Mills think that utilitarianism actually protects individuals against the majority? There are two key steps here that we went over in the last video. First, we have to think about utility in the broadest sense as welfare, which is really Aristotelian in its conception. Things that help you flourish as a human are going to be the most valuable goods for us to promote. Secondly, we're shifting to rules that will govern our entire society, or profession, or what have you, but they're concentrating on what they think should be central rules for the whole society. So we're thinking about which rules will be most likely to promote the flourishing of the largest number of people. And they think that if you make those two shifts, you'll see that one of the most important rules we should have in our moral code is one that protects the region of liberty. Before we look at why they think so, recall that the region of liberty consists of three main areas of freedom. Freedom of conscience, that's your thoughts, opinions, and feelings on all subjects. Freedom of expression, that is making public your thoughts, opinions, and feelings. And freedom of tastes and pursuits, what they also call experiments in living, or living your life as you see fit. They argue that protecting the region of liberty will bring about the greatest good for the greatest number, so that, so long as you're not harming others, we should allow and encourage you to develop your own opinions, not entirely without help. You need the framework to be able to take data and arguments and evaluate them. Express those opinions and live your life according to your own ideas of the good life without interference. And this is probably a good place to note that this is a much, much stronger defense of freedom of expression than the First Amendment. The Mills aren't just arguing that the government can't interfere with your ability to express your ideas. They're arguing that we all, as members of society, should encourage people to express even super obnoxious ideas that we hate. That doesn't mean that we have to give everyone a platform wherever they want, whenever they want, but it does mean that we should set things up so that there's a general sense that people feel comfortable expressing even ideas we find highly noxious. Why should we extend all this protection to the region of liberty? The Mills argue that a society that gives really strong protections to the region of liberty will be the most likely to bring about the greatest good for the greatest number. What they're thinking of is a scenario in which someone has an opinion or a lifestyle that doesn't harm anyone else, but that we disapprove of. They say it would be very harmful for human welfare to stifle that opinion or to try to force someone out of that lifestyle. More than that, in fact, they argue that it's actively beneficial for human welfare for people to have and to express publicly opinions that we hate, or to live lives that we strongly disapprove of, provided they're not harming anyone. Why? They give four main arguments. First, if we disapprove of someone's actions or beliefs, we have to remember that we might be the ones who are wrong. We're human beings, and human beings are wrong a lot. And many of the times humans were wrong, they were super sure they were right, and super sure that the people expressing beliefs that opposed them were not only wrong, but scum who were dangerously wrong. So even when we're quite certain we're right, we should remember all those people who were also really sure they were right and who turned out to be really wrong. If you take a look at page 16 or 17, they write, "The opinion which it is attempted to suppress may possibly be true. Those who desire to suppress it, of course, deny its truth, but they are not infallible. They have no authority to decide the question for all mankind and exclude every other person from the means of judging. To refuse a hearing to an opinion because they are sure it is false is to assume that their certainty is the same thing as absolute certainty. All silencing of discussion is an assumption of infallibility. Second, it's only by actively encouraging and continually engaging in debates, or by encouraging experiments in how to live one's life and watching the results, that we can ever have any confidence that we're right. As we said, humans are wrong a lot. So how can we ever have any confidence in our beliefs enough to take any actions or make any decisions? It's only by putting the beliefs up to be contested, giving everyone a chance to show that they're wrong, and then seeing which ideas come out of that process, that we can have any confidence in our beliefs. And the process has to be ongoing, because there are plenty of beliefs that we don't have the knowledge to overturn for maybe hundreds of years, but that suddenly get shown to be wrong because we gain more knowledge. On page 18, the Mills argue, there is the greatest difference between presuming an opinion to be true because with every opportunity for contesting it, it has not been refuted, and assuming its truth for the purpose of not permitting its refutation. Complete liberty of contradicting and disproving our opinion is the very condition which justifies us in assuming its truth. And on no other terms can a being with human faculties have any rational assurance of being right. On page 19 they write, the source for everything respectable in man, either as an intellectual or as a moral being, is owing to a quality of the human mind, namely, that his errors are corrigible. That means that we're capable of rectifying mistakes by discussion and experience, not by experience alone. There must be discussion to show how experience is to be interpreted. Wrong opinions and practices gradually yield to fact and argument, but facts and arguments, to produce any effect on the mind, must be brought before it. Okay, but like racism, sexism, seriously, what are the chances that those things are going to be proven right? And the region of liberty would protect the free expression of those beliefs, not just from government interference, but from social pressure. Why would we want to give that much protection to beliefs that obnoxious? Here's what the Mills argue. Even if we are totally right and the other person is totally wrong, it is a great benefit to us to be forced to develop and understand our own reasons for holding an opinion. If we aren't confronted with arguments against our beliefs and with beliefs that contradict ours, or if we're not confronted with ways of living that don't line up with the prevailing customs, then we never fully develop and understand the reasons for our beliefs. If we don't know what the arguments are for and against our beliefs, then we have no rational reason for preferring our beliefs over any other ones. We don't have rational beliefs at all. We just have superstitions. On page 34 and 35, they write, however true an opinion or belief may be, if it is not fully, frequently, and fearlessly discussed, it will be held as dead dogma, not as living truth. Holding a belief only because you learned it from authority, even if the authority has good reasons for it, and the belief itself is true, is not knowing the truth. Truth thus held is but one superstition the more, accidentally clinging to the words which enunciate a truth. On page 35 they write, he who knows only his own side of the case knows little of that. His reasons may be good. No one may have been able to refute them. But if he is equally unable to refute the reasons on the opposite side, if he doesn't so much as know what they are, he has no ground for preferring either opinion. Finally, if we force people to live in conformity to our customs, even if those customs are valuable and good, we wear everyone down into uniformity. We should cultivate individuality for the good of individuals and for the general good of society. The Mills think that probably the vast majority of people will choose to live according to the customs of their time and place, but it has to be a choice. And that means that the option not to live that way needs to be a real option. On page 56, they write, "To conform to custom merely as custom does not educate or develop in people any of the qualities which are the distinctive endowment of a human being. The human faculties of perception, judgment, discriminative feeling, mental activity, and even moral preference are exercised only in making a choice. He who does anything because it is the custom makes no choice." On page 60, they write, "It is not by wearing down into uniformity all that is individual in themselves, but by cultivating it and calling it forth, within the limits imposed by the rights and interests of others, that human beings become a noble and beautiful object of contemplation. And as the works partake of the character of those who do them, by the same process, human life also becomes rich, diversified, and animating." So they argue that to have people expressing beliefs or living lives that we disagree with, assuming those beliefs or lifestyles are not harming others, benefits society and each one of us individually far more than it harms us by causing us pain to see that life or hear that belief. Thus, the region of liberty should be one of the central parts of our moral code. This is the end of our lecture series on J.S. and Harriet Taylor Mills on liberty. In class, we'll review to make sure everyone understands how the arguments work, and then we'll talk about how the world of social media works or doesn't work with this ideal. Thank you, and I'll see you in class.